Hey, confirmation students and captains, it's great to see you all here. Well, actually, nobody's here but me and the people in the booth, but I trust that you're watching, and so that means that we're in this together. Tonight is the text from Isaiah 61. We are reaching that dark point of the winter. Shortest day is coming up, right? In December 21st, I think it is, 22nd, somewhere around there. And then from then on, the days get longer. The same is true in what's going on in the life of the Israelites at this time. They have had a terrible time with being held captive. They've come back and things just aren't the way that they expected. They thought they'd come home to their homes renewed and their fields working, all that stuff. And it's a ruin. Everything is destroyed. And they have to come back and actually pick up the pieces of their house and start putting them back together. They have to pick up the pieces of the wall and start rebuilding that so that armed marauders can't come in and destroy them. They have to start replanting all of their fields and start from scratch. And it is hard work. So here's the text. It's Isaiah 61, verses 1 through 11. The prophet Isaiah says, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because the Lord has appointed me, has anointed me, has sent me to bring good news to the oppressed, to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives and release to the prisoners, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor and the day of vengeance for our God, to comfort all who mourn, to provide for those who mourn in Zion, to give them a garland instead of ashes, the oil of gladness instead of mourning, the mantle of praise instead of a faint spirit. They will be called oaks of righteousness, the planting of the Lord to display his glory." That's the beginning of the passage for the evening, and you probably already have read it or will read it together in all of its entirety. So as I mentioned, the people come back from their captivity, and they are dismayed to find out that life holds no promise for them. They're disappointed. They are marauded. There are these people around there who've been living there, don't want them to move back in, and so they do everything they can to cause them trouble, to attack them. In fact, at one point, the people of Israel are needing to build their house, holding a sword in one hand for protection, and then putting the pieces of the wall or the house in as they build. So it's a terrible situation, and people of your stripe and mine, those of us who are used to kind of having a soft life, it might be really tough for us to even survive, let alone figure that we might have a chance to thrive as well. So it reminds me of that passage from Isaiah 11, verses 1 through 9. I won't read the whole passage, but here's the beginning. "A shoot shall come up from the stump of Jesse, and a branch shall grow out of its roots." A shoot shall come out from the stump of Jesse, and a branch shall grow out of its roots. So a hacked off tree, there's a stump, and what the prophet is saying, that there will be a shoot that comes out, and that will bloom into another tree, right? "The Spirit of the Lord shall rest on him, the Spirit of wisdom and understanding, the Spirit of counsel and might, the Spirit of knowledge and the fear of the Lord. His delight shall be in the fear of the Lord. He shall not judge by what his eyes see, or decide by what his ears hear. But with righteousness he shall judge the poor, and decide with equity for the meek of the earth." So here's that beautiful passage that goes on, and then it starts talking about the way things will be. "The wolf shall live with the lamb, the leopard shall lie down with the kid, the calf and the lion and the fatling together, and a little child shall lead them. The cow and the bear shall graze, their young shall lie down together, and the lion shall eat straw like the ox. The nursing child shall play over the hole of the asp, and the weaned child shall put its hand on the adder's den. They will not hurt or destroy on all my holy mountain, for the earth will be full of the knowledge of the Lord as the waters cover the sea." Imagine yourself in that situation where everything you've known and loved has been taken away from you. You've been forced to live somewhere else, you're brought back, and everything that you loved about your house, about your room, about your friends, your neighbors, your neighborhood, any of that stuff is gone. What would you do? What would it feel like? How would you learn to survive? What would you need to survive? Okay, I want you to take a pause when I tell you to, and then talk about this, either with your families or with your small group, your captains. What would it take to help you thrive in a situation where everything has been taken away from you? Okay, ready? Pause. Welcome back. So that is the struggle of the Israelites. They are back at home, but there's no home left. And so they're left to wonder, number one, what do they do to begin with tomorrow? How do they start making their life better? And number two, where is God in all of this? If God set them free from their captives and brought them all the way back home, what's good about being brought back home if there's nothing to live for? And so where do they find their hope? Where do they find what is good? Where do they find what will give them the strength needed to face the day ahead? A shoot shall come out of the stump of Jesse, and a branch shall grow out of its roots. There was an artist that we knew when we lived up in Anchorage, Alaska, and she painted a picture called the Tree of Life. So what I want you to do now is take a second and imagine, what would that tree of life look like to you? You can see some trees behind me, these big, beautiful firs. Those would be a great example. Think of an apple tree that's just brimming with fruit. Think of one of those giant sequoias or those redwoods that just shoot all the way up to the sky. A majestic oak that's covered with leaves and acorns. What is your favorite tree, and how would you imagine this to be, this painting, this picture, this tree of life? Okay, ready? Hit pause and then talk about it. Pause. Welcome back. Okay, so this artist that had this picture about the tree of life, it was at first it was kind of disappointing. It showed a branch in the middle of winter. Do you know what a branch in the middle of winter looks like from any kind of tree except for an evergreen like those behind me? It's got little tiny buds and it looks dead, right? There's no green, there's no leaves, there's no fruit on it. It's just a stick with little bumps on it. And the artist entitled that The Tree of Life. Now, in just a second, I'm going to ask you to pause and talk about what could she have been thinking? Why would she take this branch in the dead of winter and call that the tree of life? Okay, pause. Welcome back. So I can tell you what I think, and I'd love to hear what you all think when you're done talking about this. But what it says to me is that life is never always in this sense of flowers blooming, fruit brimming, trees where everything is wonderful and it's harvest time, right? This says to me that as we descend into the darkness of winter, we're going to have, all of our trees are going to look like that. They're going to be empty branches with tiny little buds on them. But what do those tiny little buds signify? It's not dead. The sap is slowed down, but it hasn't disappeared. The tree is still alive. In fact, it's gathering its strength for the spring to come, right? In fact, what's going to happen is that the sun will come out higher up in the sky, more hours every day, and begin to warm up the sap, begin to warm up the tree, and those little buds will start to grow, right, into leaves and then into fruit and to all the other things. So what that artist was painting, in my opinion, was the notion of this now but not yet. That God is coming, but he's not quite here yet. That Christ has come, but he's coming again. There's something great about life as servants of God, and yet it's still not quite where we want it to be, right? There's still pain, there's still struggle, there's still this sense of fear of death from this coronavirus, the way that our nation has been pulling apart politically. There's all kinds of struggles going on in our families, in our lives. But that's the picture of the branch in winter with just little buds. What we're promised is that the sun will come out, the sun will come to us, a little child shall lead them, Christ himself will lead us. And as Christ leads us through our hearts and into our lives, so also those buds will start to open up and the tree will grow and we will be blessed to live as servants of God. That's the promise for me. That's why I look at that picture and I'm delighted to see this bare branch in the cold of winter, but I know because that it is full of promise, and that promise gives me hope And I hope that's the message that gives you hope as well. Thanks.